This is a story flowing deep through Seattle's history of a people and a culture that endured tremendous hardship.
The policy had been kill the Indian but save the man.
Yet through wise leadership and unbreakable tenacity, they stood strong to preserve their land, their rights, and their very identity. Today, thanks to forward-thinking decision-making and ancestral promises, the tribe has reinvigorated its spirit, honoring cultural practices and never forgetting the bond established long ago to their immortal relative of the sea.
We will always be the Salmon People.
This is Spirit of the Salmon People, the Muckleshoot Story.
The salmon is our immortal relative of the sea.
Throw that lead line out.
You know, I've never missed a season.
On a sunny day in late spring, Muckleshoot fishermen leave their reservation.
Throw it out.
Returning to their ancestral fishing grounds in search of a creature they call their kin, who come at this time every year.
With the Chinook, spring Chinook.
To the Muckleshoot, catching salmon is their lifeblood, the heart of their identity.
It's been a part of our community and culture for as long as we've been around. We are the Salmon People.
But the fishing, the hunting, the gathering of berries and medicinal plants, the life they had known for thousands of years came to a critical crossroad. It became a life they had to fight for.
Our ancestors were warriors. Men and women were all warriors.
Everything that we have was built by the people before us.
We literally fought wars to retain who we are and where we live.
I'm proud of it, proud of it. My name is Warren King George. I'm an enrolled member of the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe.
As tribal historian, Warren King George tells of a time when Muckleshoot ancestors were hunter-gatherers over a vast and sacred territory, from the glimmering waters of Puget Sound to the emerald forests of the Cascade foothills. But pioneering settlers, expanding westward and backed by the Washington Territorial Militia, saw an Indian problem. Wars broke out as tribal villages joined together to defend their land and their culture.
We were in some of the wars between Indian and non-Indian.
That was brutal.
In 1854, the tribe signed the Treaty of Medicine Creek, and in 1855, the Treaty of Point Elliott. The treaties established a small and some say inadequate reservation for these descendants of Duwamish and Upper Puyallup Indians. The reservation is along the White River in and around what's now the town of Auburn in South King County. Indian agents began calling the tribe Muckleshoot, after the prairie where the reservation stands.
It's like being transplanted, metaphorically taking a cedar tree, ripping it out by the roots, and putting it over here and asking it to grow here. Sacrifices were made. Our ancestors fought for this and died and bled to create this home, what we call Muckleshoot.
Areas of land that were set aside for tribal people were not considered desirable pieces of land for anybody else.
But wise elders also insisted on writing into the treaties a core component of the tribe's identity. They reserved, quote, the right of taking fish at all usual and accustomed grounds and stations, meaning tribal members could continue to fish both inside and outside their reservation. We'll see, a century later, how that crucial language would leave a legacy with lasting impact to this day. For more than 100 years after the treaties, the Muckleshoot suffered through poverty and hardship. Fishing, hunting, and gathering literally sustained them.
They were very poor.
Extremely poor. They were basically a third world country in today's terms. There was no water, no electricity.
Surviving off the land was a daily struggle.
My diet as a child was deer meat, elk meat, salmon, berries.
Housing was subpar. Education was non-existent or very, very challenged.
Other than some logging outfits, few employers would hire Indians. Nearly 70% of the tribe lived below the poverty line.
Muckleshoot was the second poorest tribe in the state of Washington. And that's really saying something, because there were a lot of really poor tribes in the state of Washington.
But losing the life they had always known paled in comparison to an even greater pain. What hurt them most, many say, was having the irreplaceable stolen.
A lot of our young children were stripped away from their homes and dragged hundreds of miles away from their families.
Really, the policy had been kill the Indian but save the man.
Donnie Stevenson's father and all his siblings were separated from their parents and each other, forced to live with white foster families or at so-called Indian boarding schools. So were Warren King George's grandparents.
Forcibly removed on purpose to train these young children, these young Native children, boys and girls, how to be non-Native.
And Virginia Cross's parents.
They tried to turn us into white people.
They were all forced to dress the same. They were all forced to wear the same haircut.
Muckleshoot was among many tribes whose children were forbidden to speak their native language. If they did, punishment could be severe.
You did what you were told or you got in trouble. They would be slapped and they would be punished.
They thought without our cultures and without our languages, they would be able to get rid of Native American people completely.
In the early 1900s, the U.S. government described the Muckleshoot as savages and tried to transform Indians from hunter-gatherers to farmers, just like the white population. So the government broke up much of the reservation land into parcels and granted allotments to individual families. To some, that was baffling.
The concept of owning land seemed ridiculous. That's an idea that we learned from our European neighbors of that era, that it's possible to own land and prevent people from using your land. See, that whole idea was strange and foreign.
And farming seemed just as alien.
Well, that's such a foreign concept. It's something that ultimately is directly against not only your core sort of understanding of your place in the world, but thousands of years and hundreds of generations that have come before you. And so it didn't work.
Struggling to survive, some Muckleshoot families sold their land, often for pennies on the dollar.
There are times that the land was, frankly, it was just flat out stolen, that people annexed it to the property they had.
At its lowest point, the tribe as an entity owned just 1 acre, where the community hall once stood before it was destroyed by fire. The chimney of that community hall, the tribal nucleus, still stands today as a symbol of those dark days.
In their hour of need, our tribe sent a boy into the river, and he became a salmon, bearing a message from the tribe. He swam into the deep ocean to beseech the Salmon People for help.
In their darkest hour, starving, destitute, and desperate, the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe went to the river, as is their custom, and called to the salmon, their relative of the sea, for help.
You know, it's just time to put food back on the table.
And according to their history, the Salmon People of the deep answered their prayers by returning every year from the ocean to the White River, providing a bounty.
Every time we get one, it's brings a smile to my face.
It's because we're heavily dependent on the salmon as a resource, that provides our main mode of sustenance.
Chinook, sockeye, coho, and chum. Every species of salmon has value to the Muckleshoot. And tribal fishermen seek them out in rivers and in Puget Sound, inside and outside the reservation, just as their ancestors did before treaty days. The exact locations and seasons dictated by the salmon themselves.
Being able to read the water when the times that salmon people are coming back and what nation of salmon's going to be there at that time.
But then came the fish wars that once again threatened their livelihood, their culture, and their spirit. In the 1960s and 70s, large-scale commercial fishing interests, coupled with recreational sport fishermen, petitioned courts and government to crack down on native fishing, especially off-reservation. Remember the crucial language the tribe fought hard to put into the treaties: the right of taking fish at all usual and accustomed grounds and stations, even off-reservation. But when Muckleshoot fishermen did that...
Well, you'd get called names, people would throw things at you, rocks, or even get shot at.
They don't see eye to eye with us.
Ignorance is the bottom line there. They didn't feel that the tribes have a right to these resources.
All we're doing is walking up to the tent to take the net. We're not bothering anybody else. You guys are police. We're not going to take the net.
Finally, the Muckleshoots took a provocative gamble.
Well, my first protest was a fish-in down on the Duwamish River.
Louis Ungaro's family was among many who participated in so-called fish-ins, deliberately fishing off-reservation, where they weren't wanted, but where they believed treaty language they fought for allowed. Their purpose? To get arrested in order to assert their rights in court.
As a young boy, I would watch different individuals volunteer to go to jail.
Well, we believe this is our tribal right, a legal right, so we want to keep it established one way or another, either through the courts or possibly through fish war with the state here on the banks, but we hope that they will leave us alone.
Other tribes, even celebrities like Marlon Brando, joined in. Some fish-ins lasted weeks. Some grew violent.
No, this is for that.
After 3 contentious years, the case landed in federal district court, where Judge George Bolt handed down a landmark decision in 1974 that forever changed how the nation views salmon. The Bolt decision upheld the key treaty language, the right of taking fish in their usual and accustomed grounds and stations, wherever that is. And the judge ruled the tribes were entitled to half the available catch.
We have every right, an absolute right, to eat and to harvest and to manage these resources that live here that call this place home.
Non-natives were outraged, filing appeals.
We're all mad, and we're going to continue to be mad as long as the Bolt decision is enforced by the state in violation of state law. And they're still trying to crowd us into terminal areas where the fish are rotten.
But the decision withstood the test of time.
And not just that, the political power that it gave us hope. And it helped our men and women, our fishermen and fisherwomen, to be able to live a life of dignity.
In return for providing food to the tribe, we made a promise to the Salmon People. We will keep the rivers clean, provide a good home for them, and never, ever forget our culture.
At this annual first salmon ceremony, the tribe pays homage to the very first spring Chinook they catch. According to their legend, the first Chinook represents the boy who transformed into a messenger salmon, bridging their world with the salmon people in the ocean. The messenger salmon had once conveyed the tribe's plea for help. And now, every year, when he returns from the ocean and is caught by Muckleshoot fishermen in the White River, it's like homecoming for a dear relative. The salmon is cradled on a bed of cedar boughs as Warren, the tribal historian, sings his praises. This is one way the tribe keeps its promise to honor the salmon, so the salmon will return next season and bring its bounty. On this special day, after the ceremony concludes and the feasting is over, the tribal historian makes good on one final promise to his salmon relatives of the sea.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Warren makes a precious delivery back to the river.
And we're going to return him back to Spalcoat, back to White River.
The fish bones are carefully returned to the river, so the messenger salmon can return to the deep and be reborn. And year after year, the salmon can return back to this river, back to its homecoming. It's a tradition tribal ancestors have upheld for 1,000 years.
Our ancestors made this promise generations ago. It's important to continue this ceremony and to remember our promise to this wonderful relative.
But it's not only ceremonial. Where once salmon saved the tribe, now the tribe is saving salmon. The Muckleshoot operate 2 fish hatcheries to ensure salmon survival. Here at the White River Hatchery, fish biologists conduct ultrasound screening of Chinook returning from the ocean.
Big one. Female. This white part is actually the egg skein.
Record their size,
5, 6,
and age.
And the scales can be red like a ring on a tree.
And for the wild salmon.
We do a fin clip for a DNA sample.
And they give the wild salmon antibiotics.
So it just gives them a little extra boost of protection so they don't get sick.
The tribal hatcheries spawn, grow, and release as many as 10 million Chinook, coho, and chum salmon into Puget Sound every year.
It is for everybody. It's for sports fishermen, it's for tribal, it's for everybody.
Without their intervention, the tribe says salmon runs on the White River would disappear, killed by farming and urbanization.
On an annual basis, we lose 5% of our habitat. Without hatcheries, we wouldn't have salmon. They wouldn't be here.
So the tribe now monitors nearby development, always advocating for a good home to their ancestral relative, the salmon.
We fight for clean water. We fight for water rights to get fresh, cold water in our systems, to float down and to be able to enhance those salmon and encourage them to come to their ancestral spawning grounds. We enhance through hatchery systems. We enhance through conservation efforts.
By honoring old traditions and forging new ones, the Muckleshoot tribe is prospering and ensuring a future that's sustainable. The game changer here, gaming. In the 1980s, Muckleshoot was among the first in the state to open a bingo hall to raise revenue. So in 1988, when Congress approved the Indian Gaming Act that acknowledged the right of federally recognized tribes to open casinos, the Muckleshoot tribe was ready to expand its gaming enterprise.
We had to try something. You know, we weren't making money anywhere else.
As casino revenues increased, the tribe had to decide how to spend them.
It's controversial.
In her 4 decades on the governing tribal council, Virginia Cross says perhaps the most impactful was the decision not to give every tribal member a monthly stipend, as some tribes do. Instead, casino money is spent on 3 priorities: housing, healthcare, and education that helps the tribe prosper.
We thought that would be better for our people than giving them a check every month that they would just go out and blow.
Danielle Bargala Sanchez and her daughter Ren exemplify how that decision worked to change lives. When Danielle wanted to buy a house, the tribe gave her a low-interest housing loan, plus money for a new deck and remodeling. Any tribal member can apply for this assistance. When Danielle and Ren need health care, it's free at the tribal clinic.
There you go. Thank you.
And most importantly to Danielle,
They really, really put value in education.
I read it first and then you can read it? Yeah?
free education from birth to graduate school, as far as they want to go.
Do you brush them up? And do you brush them down?
That means Ren can attend free early learning classes with other babies and their moms. There will be free preschool when she's ready. And eventually, Wren can attend the state-of-the-art middle school and high school built by the tribe.
Notice when they switch back into the quote.
Unlike the Indian boarding schools of the past, these schools honor Native traditions, language, and culture. The tribe's investment in education includes hiring passionate guidance counselors like Crystal Adolph.
One of my former seniors made this for me in woodshop. It says #1 counselor.
Crystal makes a point of developing a bond with each junior and senior as she takes them on college tours, introduces them to vocational schools and certificate programs. Jaden James is one of her students heading to Washington State University to study nursing.
I want to go for my doctorate's degree and then come back to the tribe and teach them what I've learned out there.
Not every student needs to go to college, she says, but every student needs a plan.
I feel like a lot of the tribal school kids are my kids.
Crystal feels so strongly about her mission. She even became a foster parent to several students.
That's kind of how I got started, because I didn't want to lose that student. And then, so I was like, sure, they can come home with me.
Some of her foster kids are now college grads, thanks to free tuition and housing from the tribe. Danielle knows that firsthand. The tribe gave her a full ride scholarship to become a lawyer. Between a private university and private law school, Danielle estimates the tribe invested $500,000 in her education.
When you see my law school graduation pictures, I'm wearing my cedar cap that the tribe made for me, and as they robe me, I'm just crying and looking up and just thank God I did this, thank God.
She's grateful that support is available to any tribal member. Perhaps one day to Wren too.
Their goal is that when you leave the education system, you have no loans. I think it's amazing. I think I'm the only person I knew when I was in undergraduate and in law school that was not pulling loans out for something or other.
An amazing full circle story, because Danielle has come back to the reservation to work for the tribe as an in-house attorney, paying it forward.
It's really important to me that when they are fighting a case for fishing rights or for hunting rights, that has somebody tied to that culture, so that there's that different sense of passion coming into it. These are my fish we're fighting for.
And they're so generous though, and they open doors, they open windows for us, so we have options.
Housing, healthcare, education. Services paid by the tribe for the good of the tribe.
So any revenue that's generated is invested directly back into the tribe.
A lot of people who are non-Indian or non-tribal, they think that it's the federal government that is subsidizing tribal members, and it usually isn't. It's the tribe through time has been able to build its businesses and build its own source of income.
And that source of income is diversifying. Though the bulk of the tribe's wealth still comes from gaming, an increasing percentage comes from other business ventures: real estate, construction, timber sales, and the sale of salmon to local markets.
Our traditional idea of wealth is how well we have the ability to provide for others. So the richest person in a community or within a tribe is the one who serves others in the best and most effective way. So the context of how our leaders make decisions is through that lens. And there is no better way to serve your people than to prepare them to be able to live successfully beyond and without you.
The messenger salmon is reborn and returns to feed us year after year. And we must keep our promise to protect the salmon, to protect our culture, and build a future for generations to come.
The Muckleshoot tribe has come a very long way. But as they look to the future, they never forget to honor the past, remembering promises made to their ancestors, to preserve, even revitalize their heritage. On this day, Muckleshoot will host the canoe journey, based on the age-old tradition of potlatch. Dozens of tribes travel on more than 100 canoes, sometimes for hundreds of miles, from as far away as British Columbia and Alaska.
We please humbly ask permission to come ashore.
To arrive in Seattle, where they are welcomed by the Muckleshoot Tribe in their native homeland.
Thank you for coming to our homeland. Thank you for traveling, and thank you for being in good spirits. And I ask that you have a good time all weekend and don't act up too much.
The tribes gather to share and celebrate traditional stories, song, dance, and food, passing on these customs to the next generation, just as their ancestors had done for centuries. As part of the Muckleshoot promise to revitalize its culture, there's a new interest and commitment to preserving Lushootseed, their ancestral language.
We have 0 fluent speakers left anymore. One day, our goal is to be fluent and to have our children be fluent.
That's a commitment going forward, with a nod to the past.
And it makes me so passionate about the work that I do, because I'm not doing it for me. I'm not doing it just for my children and my family. I'm doing it for my ancestors, and I'm doing it for the generations to come.
The warriors who died in battlefields, the elders who fought for fishing rights, the leaders who shepherded the rise of gaming, the improvements to hatcheries, the growth of businesses, and the tribal council who continues today to invest in the tribe's welfare. They all succeed by carrying with them the power and promise of the warriors before them.
Not only do I have to stand on the shoulder of giants, but someday I'll be an ancestor too. And people will be looking back to me and standing on mine. And that's a heavy load, and it's a big responsibility. But the flip side of that coin, when you look at it, what an honor, what an absolute privilege to be able to represent that. To be a living example of our traditional culture and values is so meaningful and powerful and sacred.
Through dark times and despair, the Muckleshoot Tribe never gave up. So the spirit of the Salmon People endures.
Those people went through a lot of suffering to reserve this land here, to reserve certain rights, and to continue forward for future generations.
As they journey forward, the Muckleshoot know they can count on what has always been an invaluable part of their identity: the unbreakable bond between all the Salmon People, past, present, and future.
We've endured many, many obstacles and hardships, and I want people to know that it didn't weaken us. It didn't weaken the people here. It actually made them stronger.
We are still here. We are alive and strong. We are Muckleshoot.